Hi, Kylie.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to
Finally.
see you too.
Have you taken enough rest?
Yes, I have. Thank you very much. Sorry if there's a little rattling in the background. I have my dog with me at the moment, so she'll
Problem.
settle down in a second.
No problem. It doesn't even feel like somebody's there. We're,
Okay.
we're actually having two sessions right now. So people have gotten slightly distracted. And the other session is with Brooks, and it's a closed door session. So he only wanted six filmmakers to work with him on the coaching part, you know. So they have been. So I think they will be able to join in once they come in. And
No worries.
some slight issue with the login. So we'll wait for 2 minutes if that's okay with you. I
Oh,
think.
totally, no problem. I'll just turn my camera off for a second.
Sure.
Yeah. So how long does the film festival run for?
So it's a total of 10 days. Started yesterday and we'll end on the 28th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And how many films do you get to screen
We're
at the
screening
festival?
300 films this year.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was actually very nice because I mean honestly we haven't really marketed or promoted. It's been
Right.
very simply what one can do, but it
Yeah.
actually we actually reached like about 56 countries
Uh-huh.
had participation, and so when we closed we were at about 1000 submissions, 1000 plus
Amazing. Yeah.
something,
Well done.
it
Yeah.
was. And this year we've made themes. It wasn't that you could submit a film on anything. There have been themes. So I was actually thinking that probably it's going to be not so many because people normally make films on genres, so
Yes.
romantic and thriller and that, and not really theme. So I thought it wouldn't be too much, but when it started pouring, then I was like, okay, people are making on everything that's possible, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Oh, it sounds exciting. Maybe I'll have to submit next round, next time.
Oh, it will be an
Got my
honor.
stuff.
You are on your feature right now, right?
Well, we just wrapped the show that I was working on is a Netflix. It's going to be released by Netflix next March or April, I think.
Mhm.
That just wrapped last night, and my role in that was very minor. But I did get to do some creative work, which was great on that show. And then I'm waiting to hear about whether my feature film is going to go ahead this year or not. Yeah, so I'll find out probably in the next 2 weeks or so if we get the right amount of funding to be able to make it. Yeah, so
Oh, the funding.
I
Oh,
know. Yeah, it's always the biggest thing that everyone wants to know about is like how do you, and sometimes you just have to pick up a camera, get some people together, and just make what you can, and just to keep going. So
how many times have you done that?
many,
Hmm.
many,
Like
yes.
just pick up the camera and just go.
Well, my first film was like that. My first short film, Gluttony, was definitely that scenario. It was like zero budget. I had a cheap Canon DSLR, a rickety tripod, a very cheap boom microphone that was horrible. But somehow we sort of made it come together. If you've got the right people around you, I think,
Yeah.
and you're all on the same page, you can kind of achieve that first step. So, but yeah, and then sort of gradually over time, the projects have grown a little bit and stuff like that. But yeah, it's sometimes when you really want to tell a story and no one's going to give you any money, you just have to find a way to go out and
Yeah.
tell the story anyway.
Yeah. You can't not tell the story and just sit around like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially now there's iPhones and DSLRs. I mean, you can buy a pocket camera, Black Magic pocket camera that shoots 4K. So
Yeah,
there are so many ways to do it now that were not available when I first started,
yeah.
um, that are so affordable and so easy. So it's much more accessible now for people wanting to tell their stories, I think.
Yeah, and even distribution has taken a leap of faith now. It's
Yeah,
not just restricted to a linear distribution process where
that's right.
you don't make a film to keep it in your living room, so you have to take it out. But that's also changing. But
Yep.
what I also observe is that even though we have so many options coming in, but there's always a couple of years of confusion. you know
Yeah.
as a creator, it's never, no matter what you have or you don't have, it's a I think it's like more of a habit, a practice, that till you get into that practice, you don't even realize how much you have or how little you have, because
Yeah.
you know
You're
it
in it. Yeah.
you're in it and you really don't know either that, are you comfortable, is this your process, or
Yeah.
is it something that you are unnecessarily struggling with, like all those things are so personal.
That's very true. It's very, very true. Yeah. I think those early stages where you are out there with just a very low budget and not much in the way of funding, it's a great way to sort of learn the basic fundamentals as well. And learning those basic fundamentals allows you to then move into sort of trickier territory
Yeah.
technically with your approach, especially like with directing, where you've got so many elements to pull together to
Hmm.
create the vision.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when you're just starting out, you only have so many elements to work with, and that's probably a good thing.
Hmm.
Um, it's just piggybacking off what you were saying.
Yeah.
You're just free. It makes you sort of freer to tell your story in
Hmm.
a sense without having too much. Sometimes, and I've heard this said, I was working on a TV show last year called Billy the Kid, and uh, one of the directors has said to me, sometimes it's better when you have less than
Hmm.
have too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes those things can actually hinder what you want to do.
Yeah.
So because it's just too much stuff.
That reminds me, like slightly off context, but also related. I was having a conversation with somebody who runs a school for special needs children, and she was trying to make me understand that how difficult it is for the children, when they can't either hear or they can't speak. And I said, sometimes I really feel we have too much.
Yeah,
Know? Like really, like we have too many senses working, and we don't like really find anything easy, like we're speaking,
yeah,
listening and thinking everything at the same time, while
yeah,
somebody who doesn't have half of it is equally happy.
yeah, yeah. That's such an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay, great. So I think we will go ahead. So everybody, hi, good evening. This is Kylie. Hitchcock has turned up Odd Malhar at a very, very short notice, and I really can't thank her enough for this. She's been in the middle of a crazy shoot, but she's logging in right after. So Kylie is a screenwriter and a director. She is based in Canada. Which part of Canada are you in, Kylie?
I'm based in Calgary, Alberta. So well, I actually live in Banff, which is a national park in the Rocky Mountain area.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very lucky to be able to live there. But while I'm working on film projects, I usually live in Calgary, which is the sort of the local city where there's a lot of movie studios and a lot of filming locations and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I've
Oh,
been for the
man.
past 5 months. Yeah.
Super. You're in a dream place. Absolutely in a
Yeah.
dream place.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're originally from Australia, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I was born in Canberra, Australia. I I guess I left living there full time in around 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I was working as a chef, as a cook,
Oh,
and started traveling all around the world, and then met my Canadian husband doing that. So, yeah,
wow. Life is itself a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she's an absolutely award-winning director, and currently working on a couple of projects that we will hear not as a project, but as what she's doing in it. So Kylie is going to take us through her process, her way of making choices and decisions. So the way I'll request all of you to listen to this conversation from is that here's another person who's been doing storytelling or filmmaking for a lot many years, and here is she now today sharing her secret sauce with all of us. We may be able to copy paste, we may not be able to relate to it at all, and both of it is okay. But if we listen to it intently, what we are trying to achieve in this conversation is that how does she write? How does she think of an idea in the first place? What happens then? And what happens then after? And what happens after that? Where does the process stop? Where does the challenges come? And everybody, all of us have challenges. So, how does she move out of the challenges? Maybe that will open up something for one of us or all of us, right? So, let's make it in a way that, Kylie, I didn't tell you about this, but I have a rapid fire for you.
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
Awesome. So I'm going to have a rapid fire by which all of us get to know you a little more. Yeah. And
Sounds
then
good.
we get into our details. So, short film or documentary,
Short film,
fiction or nonfiction,
fiction.
human stories or environment.
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, could I go 50-50?
Now,
Oh dear. Well, I would have to say human stories because they also interweave with the environment. How's that for an answer?
I just knew you were going to say that. I just knew it. Okay, small budget or medium budget,
Medium,
self funded or commissioned only.
self, if possible. More creative control.
Sorry, say that again. I missed that part.
Self-funded, if possible. More creative control.
With you.
But to have creative
Patriotic or patriotic or global?
global. I'm a global girl.
Festival route or television?
Oh, these are hard. These are really hard. Television,
Okay. Institutional funding or investors?
investors.
Emphasis on music or music as a layer?
Can you repeat the question?
For you, the focus on music is such that it is the prime focus, it's a very important element, or music is a layer?
Depends
Support.
on the story.
But usually.
I would say music is a layer usually, but have written a couple of feature films where music is the central, is almost like one of the characters. Yeah.
And you win a gold hamper. Here's your hamper.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm sorry I didn't prepare you enough for that, but
It's okay. That
these
was
were the
fun.
things. These did you enjoy that?
Yes.
Awesome. So great. So, surprisingly, yeah, we were all young people here. Okay. So, like I said, that we are engaging with Kylie in this conversation to know about her process. So, Kylie, I was wondering that, um, like you've been making films for so many years, uh, but instead of getting into a particular film, can you take us through some of the ideas, thoughts, or experiences that have taken you towards making a film out of that?
Uh, I can definitely and with 100% honesty and assurity say that a story from me germinates from a personal experience. And I think that when you're starting out in beginning the idea of a project or creating a story, whether it's coming in from after the story's written or beginning to write the story yourself, writing it from a personal perspective or a personal experience. And it doesn't have to be that it actually all happened to you, but that enables you to write the most authentic story that you possibly can, and those authentic stories are what make people's heads turn, make people keep flipping the page, make people keep watching the show. You need to, in my humble opinion, and I'm, others might have a different opinion than this, but I really believe that strongly, that you've got to write something that has affected you, or that you've experienced, or that you've helped a friend through, or some examples from my side, as one of my best films that I'm most proud of, Moral Compass. It's a total fiction, but it was inspired by the death of my grandmother, who died very, very sadly of Alzheimer's, and she had no recourse or help to sort of move through that suffering. And I was angry and upset, and I pushed all of those emotions into this fictional piece. And then another example, a feature film that I just won a grant award for last year to write the first draft of, is called A Human Frailty. And that was inspired by a camping trip that I went on with my husband during COVID. We were like, what can we do to sort of get out of the house? So we went on this camping trip in northern Alberta and British Columbia. And, I was like, wow, all these lorry trucks, these logging trucks are flying along these highways. And what happens if a cyclist gets hit, and they're in the middle of nowhere? And I'm thinking of all these things. So it didn't happen to me, but the experience of that inspired the germination of that idea for me. And I think those sorts of things are important when you're beginning to tell a story. You have to have that authentic feeling, vision. It could be a scene that you see in your head. Any of those things are so impactful for beginning storytelling.
Hmm.
That was a long answer, sorry.
Not at all. I can repeat it, shall I? I wouldn't. So, so when these ideas, like just the one on the highway, uh,
Mm,
which is happening as a momentary thought, right?
yeah,
But then to make a film, you need to really develop it. It has
that's
to
right.
go on for several minutes after that, right?
Yeah.
So do you do you decide at what stage do you decide that it's going to be a short film or a feature or
Oh,
a
that's a great question, actually. That is a really great question, because I've started writing what I thought was going to be a feature film, and then gone, this doesn't need at all to be a feature film. There's no way it's going to last 2 hours of viewing, and it's going to be far more impactful to be a 15-minute, 7-minute film. I've also made the mistake of trying to make a short film to go too long, as well. So that's a great idea. So what I do is, if I already know the beginning and the ending, then I can usually see the struggle for that second act, which is super hard to do. And usually will be that I'll know that it's going to be a feature film if I can see the journey. If I only sort of have like a basic germination of an idea that's like an ending or a beginning, it takes a lot more work. So I like to, and I don't always write this way. I'd be lying if I said I did. But during my studies at UCLA, I really learnt about the process of outlining and uh, prepping and planning before you actually start writing the script. And that is super helpful, especially if you're doing a feature and you really need to make sure that there's that momentum carried through that second act, or the late part of the second act. Um, Creating that outline, maybe it's a 1-pager, a 3-pager, a 5-pager, or a 10-page treatment, or even just a beat sheet of all of the beats that you see. That will tell you, is this gonna carry, is this gonna pack a punch the whole way through and keep people interested the whole way through? Or is it a 7-minute film that's going to be much more impactful and a much better way to tell your story? You'll find that out super fast, and you won't have then wasted days, months, sometimes years on trying to force out a feature film.
hmm. So
Yeah.
at what point do you start writing?
It depends. like for example, the first film I ever wrote, it was called The Mary Project, and I did everything backwards. I wrote this full feature film. I thought it was amazing. It was horrible. It was the worst thing I ever wrote, and I thought it was at the time. I thought, my gosh, this is brilliant. I'm going to be an Academy Award winning writer, and and then I realized, no, 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 no. This was not. But I started writing that in script format from the very big first day. I was on a vacation. I had this idea and I just started writing. And I said to my husband, I think I'm going to write a screenplay. He's like, do you know how to do that? And I said, no, no, not yet, but I'm going to find out. And in the end, that second act was weak. It was not, hey, Sodi. Mwah.
That's the surprise.
It's good to see you. Um, yeah, so I think now after sort of being around the block a few times in terms of script writing and successes and failures, and there's lots of failures as well. I think now I write the outline first and I just let it flow. I don't try and censor or direct myself, or that's very hard to do. You have to sort of really clear your head. But I just sort of write 3 or 4 pages of just, sometimes it's garbage, sometimes it's great. It might not make sense to anyone but me. And that sort of gets everything sort of out. And I also, when I'm out walking, and I live in a beautiful area. I'm so lucky to live where I live, around mountains and surrounded by beauty all the time. So I often I'll use my phone and I'll dictate into my phone if I'm struck by something, or like an additional scene or a solution to a problem that I'm facing in the script. So I use my phone a lot to do voice notes
Hmm.
as well. Yeah, so that's kind of how I start now.
So after you have the outline and you have your rough sketches,
Hmm.
do you take somebody's help to put it all together, or you clean up your
Not
own mess?
usually. No, I then go into the full, like I use Final Draft software, but there's a lot of other script writing softwares out there, free ones like Celts and stuff like that, that you can use as well. But I usually go straight into the first draft of the script,
Mhm.
and I will write. Some people write out of sequence. I write in sequence. I know Taika Waititi writes sometimes out of sequence. Um, but I won't send my work out until I've had that time with my people in the script, my characters, my
Mm.
locations, and I make sure that my vision is pretty solid, and then I'll send it out once usually the first draft, once I've got a full first draft.
You send out the first full draft to other people.
Just to people I trust.
Yeah.
So, like my story editor and very close friend, Hugh Cameron, who I met in an acting class back in 2006. He's someone that I trust to give me really sometimes very strong feedback, in the negative or the positive. He will often be very open about his ideas as well. And some of them I reject, and some of them I think, oh wow, that's brilliant, let's do that. So we have a very honest dialogue between us, and we don't take anything personally.
That's good.
Sometimes he'll come back to me with notes, and I'll be like, "This is so wrong, Hugh. Like, I think we're on the different page here." But that very rarely happens. And then I send it out to some other people who are in the industry, who we sort of swap. So I'll do them a favor and do notes for them, and then they'll do notes for me. I try to shy away from sending it to my friends and family now. I did that in the beginning,
Hmm.
but generally, either they don't really want to read it. They might say they do, but they really don't, or they'll just say it's always amazing, and that's not really helpful. You've got to have sort of like the tough love, I guess you could say.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but but do they go and watch your film when it's made, or they don't even watch that?
My mum, who lives in Australia, I send her the private links to a lot of my stuff. She loves that. She really appreciates it. And my husband, bless him, he's like amazing and supportive, and yeah, he's come when he can. He comes to the screenings and stuff like that. So yeah.
So they do come and see the final output.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So, just for a recap, I think a couple of people have joined in earlier while Kylie takes a quick break. So, what we're talking about, Kylie's screenwriting and direction process. She's talked about preparing an outline as the first step, and then going over and putting all her rough thoughts and drafts into any manner, usually her phone, but it could be anyone. So just dumping her thoughts and then processing it over till she's comfortable with the first draft, and that she runs it over with her comfort people, right?
Yeah.
Now, so let's just, and before that, we also spoke about her way of choosing ideas. Where do they come from? And she said that it absolutely always comes from a personal experience, a moment, a conversation, a journey, anything could trigger that. Then we spoke about how does she know that what duration would that film go to? It's just a very, very little idea. And that's what she said, that once she's processing it and really, really processing it, it sort of comes to her, of whether it should be like a 7 minute thing or a feature, depends on how much one is able to stretch it. So at this point, if anybody has a question, you're free to put that in the chat and we'll have Kylie respond to that. And then let's go deeper. Okay, quickly, half a minute if somebody's sending in anything. So while I think let's give everybody a little time to process their questions. Kylie, what would you tell to somebody who is starting afresh? Probably probably the person writes, um, and people like to read what they write, but they haven't explored films through the writing and are very nervous because the understanding is that the writing for films is very different. Uh, you know,
Oh yeah.
it is, yeah. So what would you guide to somebody like that? Should they move in? Not what could be the checklist for somebody to even gauge that are they cut for that or not? Your thoughts?
Um, so just to clarify, you're asking like someone who's already got a story, uh, what would their next step be if they've never done this before? Is that
No, I meant to say that, like in today's time, we have a lot of people who write content,
yes?
right? And now content is a very big word, right? From writing something for a website to writing something for the social media, all
Yeah.
of it is of course a similar skill where you're trying to sell something, where you're trying to sell a dream, where you're trying to sell a promise, where you're trying to show other person your side of the world. So it's similar, and of course you do it by the play of your words, literally. So let's say
Mhm.
if the person is at that level and has been doing that for several years, doesn't feel confident that the skill could be good enough to write a script for a film because the script would involve a lot, but has a love and a flair for writing. Would you even recommend that they go the film route, or they should study further?
I think there are so many resources online now that you can find. I wrote my first script before I went to and did my UCLA program and my NYU program. Um, uh, uh, I would say if that person has something that they genuinely want to say and they want to say it in a cinematic way, they should start writing. And there are tons of resources out there on the internet that can teach you. And there's also a lot of courses now that are available. Sundance Collab, um, which is a sort of an offsider of the Sundance Film Festival in the US. They have their own little online school as well, and they offer online screenwriting courses. So that there's so much available. I would say you don't have to sort of go to a university and and go into an expensive program or anything like that. You can also just, there are scripts available for download on the internet as well that are publicly available. It's not illegal or anything like that. And you can copy the format of, this is a slug line, this is how you write, how you would format the dialogue. And I think the important thing is to remember is that the golden rule of filmmaking, and it's been repeated in multiple panels, I think, all over the world in film festivals, is show, don't tell. And that would be the biggest, most important thing. So we're doing visual work. We're telling a story in a visual way. So I'm a judge in a couple of film festivals around the world. I read hundreds of scripts every year when I'm judging. And one of the most common mistakes that I see, or common issues that I see, is there's just way too much dialogue. You're misinterpreting that. Your viewers need to know this when they can see it and figure it out for themselves. And that's what makes cinema so fascinating, is we're intelligent people, and we want to be given some clues, but we don't want all the dialogue just telling the story for us.
Right.
So don't tell would be the best advice I could give. And go write your script. If you've got something to say, go write. Start writing right now.
Right. And not to oversimplify it.
Yeah, you want to have a lot of white space. You want to give the reader, especially when you're writing what we call a spec script. So a spec script is a script that's not ready for production. So we have a spec script and we have a shooting script. And a spec script is really something that you want to be really readable. You want it to flow. You want people to be able to just flow through the pages very easily. And that requires a lot of white space on the page. So you want to be very sparse. You also want to build your world quite effectively with using as little words as possible.
Can you give an example of that? Is there something on your mind right now of the white space?
Yes. So, okay, I can give you an example. So say two people are going to a takeout place, and there's going to be a riot coming through, and no one knows that yet. But oftentimes, two people will go to the takeout place and it'll seem really quiet. And then all of a sudden, someone says, "Oh my God, there's a riot." You don't want to, you want to cut that dialogue out. I just heard there's a riot, or the radio said there's a riot. No, get rid of that. Make the sound like they're ordering their burger, everything seems peaceful, there's a bird on a tree chirping away, and then all of a sudden you feel the sudden growing and growing and growing of the sound of the riot, and people wondering what the hell it is, and you're building up that suspense, and someone comes running ahead with a bloody nose, and people are starting to gradually, and so you get those goosebumps, and you're like, what's going on, and then all of a sudden, whooshka, the riot comes through. So you don't want to have like a newspaper going, "Oh, be careful, there's a demonstration today," or the radio announcing that there's a riot. So I see that a lot in beginning, or in very new screenwriters do that a lot. They don't yet have that vision. They have the story, and they feel like the actors want to tell the story. The actors don't have to tell the story. They're in the story. They're a part of the story. So learning that, and I still make that mistake myself, and I have to go in and how could I show this better instead of just forcing it on the audience like that.
Beautiful. So, like what you said, precisely what it means is show, don't tell.
Yes.
Don't say too much. Don't oversimplify it. Don't assume that the audience will not understand it. Let them feel it.
The audiences are smart people. They love figuring out. That's why we keep coming back to the cinema, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. We're not, the audience is not in an encyclopedia session. They're in a cinema. So
exactly.
they're not expecting you to answer it for them. They want to be part of the figuring process.
Yeah, and you don't want to dictate to anybody. You're there. You need to keep your vision of your story and what you want to tell. And sometimes people will come back to you and go, "Well, I don't think, maybe that's not," and we get into the touchy subject of political correctness or whatever. And yes, you do have to be you have to do due diligence. You have to make sure that you are not being offensive and being in my opinion. But when we're creating art, we have to be true to our story, and not everyone's going to like our story, and that's okay.
Mm.
But auteurs, meaning writer directors, we do have to try to really hold on to that. And if you're lucky enough to be able to move your script through to distribution, through all of those hard long years of work, to a place where it finally gets shown, you need to also be ready to back up what your story is and stand by it and be strong about it too. Yeah.
So that you said it beautifully. In fact, that's something that we are emphasizing in Malhar to every filmmaker, that your job doesn't end at putting the story together. You know, it's you who has to drive. It's your story. You have to drive it all the way to the people, to the audience, to the distributor, to the next distributor, to the next distributor, because nobody else is going to do that but you. You know,
Yes, in the indie film space, normally if you're the person that's putting your work out there, you're the producer. And there's a reason that the producer is the person that stands up at the Academy Awards for Best Picture. And that's because they're the person that has driven this project from that tiny little germination of an idea through all the heartache, pain, hard work, joy,
everything.
hysteria, whatever it takes, and you're finally at that other end, and it doesn't end. It just keeps going and going and going. It's like it's like a child that won't leave home. So,
Yeah.
um,
Which is one of the factors that not every film becomes a classic. There are only
yes,
few
very few.
which
Yeah,
have the capacity to be driven for that
yeah,
long.
yeah. It's true. It's true.
Awesome. So we have a question from Kritika. She's saying, "What is your process of getting over a creative block, Kylie?
Oh,
Especially
that's a
when
great question.
yeah, especially one when one is in a strict timeline, because as
Oh, yeah.
creative people, we want to have all the time in our worlds to do what we fantasize, but it doesn't work.
Thank you for asking that. It's a great question. I have, I'm always told, oh, right, there's no such thing as writer's block, or there's no such thing as, as stall. You just have to keep going. And there's an element of truth to that. Sometimes I divert from a project, so I might be stuck on something, and after a few attempts of trying different things, I might still be stuck. So I'll go and actually work on a different project, and that could be in the editing room, in the writing room, or maybe I'll do some directing prep. So I'll grab one of my feature film projects, and I'll do some script annotations for how I want to work with the actors on a certain scene, and just sort of free myself up again before I return to the story that I was writing before. So that's one way that helps me, because I still feel like I'm being creative in other ways. I don't feel like I'm being lazy in that way. Another thing is that doesn't work for me so much, but I know that some friends of mine in the industry do this. They just go and do a different job for a while. They might go and do something completely different out of their normal life and be challenged by that in a certain way. Especially actors, I know, do that. They will go and learn a new skill, do something that really challenges them. So that's one way as well. But if you are, say you've got a client, which this has happened to me before, where you have a delivery date, and often in television, I just worked alongside a showrunner for the last 5 months who was literally on set with her laptop on her, her chair, and she was standing and having to write scenes and do things like on the fly. So if you have a delivery date and you can't turn away, you don't have the time to go and take a walk in the park or learn a new language or something like that, my advice would be to just write. Just even if you think it's garbage, just keep going. Don't stop. Get to the end. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got just in this recent show about writing and having to do it on the fly and, with maximum pressure. The showrunner of this show, brilliant lady, she said to me, Kylie, someone has to make a decision, and that decision making has to be you as the writer. So you just have to go. There's no choice. You just have to do it. And I was like, right on. Okay, then. So
That's what you needed to hear, I guess.
I think so. It's okay as well. You've got to be accepting of yourself in that it's never going to be perfect for anybody.
Yeah.
So once you realize that, and also especially if you're writing a first draft for a client, be very hesitant to send that out to them too soon. Don't never ever ever send out a draft to a client that has not been proofread and edited properly, because they'll be like, oh, they'll be pressuring you to send it,
Yeah.
and they'll tell you that, oh no, don't worry, I understand it's going to be a rough draft, and rah, don't send it.
Yeah.
Keep it until you're proud of it, until you know it's clean, from it's got great grammar. Don't ever send anything out, even if they tell you, oh no, we understand it, it's fine. They don't, they think that they're going to be fine, but
Right.
if they read that draft and it's messy,
Yeah.
it,
They're
it
not
still
gonna,
looks bad. They won't understand.
yeah. And it's going to work really, really backwards for the
Yes.
writer than progressive.
Yeah, and the same thing when if you're we all get excited about putting our film out
Mm.
once we're in the editing room as well, and sometimes we rush that, and I'm guilty of that, and it's backfired on me. It was too soon to show it to people, and we lost a film deal because of that, with my first feature film. So yeah, speaking from direct experience.
But
Don't
Kylie,
put your work out
what
until
about
it's
the,
really ready.
sure, but what about the role of time? What you're talking about is being confident before presenting it to the world, right?
Yeah,
Be it a draft or be it a final cut, right?
yeah, yeah,
This could, let's say, happen when it's your own production or it's your own script.
yeah.
Maybe you can take more time. But when you're on a project, it's a job, and there's a
Yes.
timeline. One doesn't have that luxury,
No.
right?
Oh, yeah. You have to put it out, but I would still say send it to your trusted person,
Hmm.
or send it to someone within that production who that's not going to be responsible for your next job. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Um, at least to get that proofreading done, especially because in TV writing, um, if you get one continuity error wrong, that can be a $500,000 error or a $20,000 error for the production. So it's not just about, oh, is my writing great? It's about, are all the elements there that have to match this episode, or two episodes down the road when we go back to this story thread. So there's all these very, very complex elements that you have to be careful of. And I have personally witnessed where, we've had to go back and reshoot things that have, it's cost, a production maybe $250,000
Oh,
to go and reshoot these things because continuity wasn't followed, or mistakes were made in terms of like location, or it's very easy to, when you're rushing, and you're under pressure like that, it's easy to miss those things. You need to get your work checked. So even if it means making production wait
hmm.
4 hours or another day, if you're not going to shoot those scenes until Friday, uh, take the time to have it checked. Yeah, for sure.
Got you.
Yeah.
Are there books that were really important for you developing your screenwriting skills? Some
Gosh,
recommendations?
yes, yes. I read a lot, especially when I was starting out. The Hollywood Standard. is definitely, I have it on my desk when I'm in full writing mode. I have it beside me, just to cross check. And also, the Hollywood standard gets updated as well. So, you know, that sort of, because norms change over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, script writing formats change over time as well. And there's a couple of books by David Trottier, uh, on screenplay writing that were really helpful to me. In terms of directing, David Mamet uh, was probably someone that I on directing he wrote. And then there's also another great author. He's a science fiction writer. Oh, his name is escaping me right now. I think I posted the cover of his book on my Instagram because I go back to him a lot too. And on developing your characters, um, if anyone wants to follow up with me, I'll get his name. It's
Sure.
just I'm getting a blank right now.
No
But yeah,
problem.
I was a voracious reader, and still am. Yeah, I love to find out what other people's processes are. I also read. I read a lot of screenplays, so I'm
That's
constantly reading other people's screenplays.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
I guess that was also a brilliant idea to develop your own narrative style. When you read so many other people's screenplay, then you know which direction do you vibe with.
Yes. I think when, in terms of like just a little comment on developing your own style, I don't think there's any antidote to that other than time.
Hmm.
So writing lots and lots and lots yourself is the only way that you'll develop your own narrative style. Um, yes, reading all the books, reading other people's screenplays definitely will help shape you, but developing your own style, whether it be directing or writing, I think just comes with just doing it a lot. And then you realize like this is how I want to approach it. But when you're starting out, I think it's good to sort of look at all of it, you know, and just really look across the broad magical world of everything that's out there, before you sort of go, well, this is, you don't want to put yourself into a box too soon, I think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a good point for the youngsters because, especially in today's time, what I have observed, I might be wrong, but what I have had a sense is that youngsters want to define their styles too soon.
Yes, they do. And also I think part of that is because the industry wants, they don't want to be confused about who you are as an artist. And I recently signed with a talent agency here, for my directing work, and it's important to them for them to know who am I as an artist, because they're going out to sell and pitch me to other productions. Um, you know, but I've been in this industry, you know, quite a long time now, not as long as many other people, but relatively speaking, a fair amount of time now. And I do have a good sense of who I am and where I'm going and what I want to do. But I'm glad in the beginning that I just had that freedom just to, you know, I did all kinds of different genres,
Yeah.
you know. And you know, when I had my first meeting with my agent, he said, "Wow, you've done a lot of different things." And I said, "Yeah," and I'm very unapologetic about that.
Got absolutely, totally, totally relate to that. Preeti, I hope your question was answered in the conversation. You were asking, as a noob screenwriter, how can I develop my skill while being on the job? So I think what Kylie said, just right. Just right, 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 right. You know, like there's no other way to being a screenwriter, noob to a pro, other than writing. So just right, right. Forget that you're on the job. Just do the job that you have to. But right, 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 right.
Yeah, just write a lot. Write even, you know, it's great to always finish a project, but there's nothing, people probably will disagree with me on this, but it's okay to have five half finished ones
Hmm.
too. I mean, I do.
Hmm.
So.
That's your process. Exactly the point. No,
Don't
no,
tell
no, no.
anybody.
We will edit this one out. So the next thing that anybody gets a script from Kylie, nobody would know that probably it's that unfinished one that's going out. It's still superb. Okay, Kritika has another question. She says, as a content creator, do you think the pressure of creating content in day-to-day life is taking a toll on the mental health of most of the content creators out there? And a lot of people are losing the sense of originality in that race?
I don't follow, I'm not on TikTok and I don't sort of create short videos or any of that. So I am not in that space at all. What I can say is that from based on my own personal observations, yes, it does seem that creativity is kind of taking a direction that I definitely don't want to follow
Hmm.
in that space. I don't know how I could tell anything meaningful in that space based on how I am as an artist. So, what I can't really speak to being a content creator because I consider myself a storyteller, not a content creator. But I do observe a lot of content I guess it just makes me feel a bit sad. I don't know. I hope I answered your question okay.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna thank you for all the participation. Keep bringing it on. We're gonna jump to the next part of knowing Kylie more better of her process. So, Kylie, we heard you till about your writing process. You know,
Mhm.
the first draft, the dumping of the thoughts, putting it together, sharing it with a safe set of people. Now, now that you have a good enough draft to go forward with, in my opinion, it's not important for every writer to direct their own film,
That's true.
but
Yeah.
some do, right?
Yes.
So, since you direct most of what you write,
Mhm.
at what point, and I also feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I also feel that writing can also get adapted and improved while the shoot is going on, while the pre-production and the production is going on. The story develops constantly. It's never at the end till you say it's at the end, right? so
Yeah.
so moving from the writer persona to the director persona, please share, when do you know that you're ready to start rolling?
Uh, Usually I send a script out into the world into a couple of festivals and
Mhm.
see how they do. Mostly reputable ones that I know they're going to have good readers. And sometimes I try to get festivals that will deliver notes back as well.
Nice.
Um, I also, and this is an important note for anyone sort of starting to get their scripts out there or want to get their scripts out there, you need to make sure that you have your one sheet, your leave behind, your log line, your synopsis. You need to have all of these materials ready. You need to even have, if you're going into a directing mode, you also want to have your director's vision document. It could be electronic or on paper. This often has mood boards for costume, location ideas. It doesn't have to be the actual costumes or actual location, but just to give producers, the people that you're going to be working with, palette, color, tone, all of those things are really important. So you need to have your pitch deck if you're pitching it, your one sheet, which is a logline synopsis with maybe some color on it, like a nice looking document. You also need to just have all your Word documents, like maybe a 10 pager, maybe a 3 pager, all of those things. So having just the script, let's not kid ourselves. No, you need to have all of that whole package before you go move forward. But then when I'm ready to move forward, if my story is done well in a festival or two, and I've gotten some really great notes, I kind of just know in my gut if it's ready. When I began writing, I did not have that instinct yet. So I in a couple of projects, we went to camera too early. My first feature film, The Dog Walker, I kind of regret how quickly we rushed that. I wished I'd have had, another 4 months or 5 months to work on the story. I didn't get that, and I was very keen to direct my first feature, so I kind of rushed into that. So if you can avoid rushing in, you're going to make a better film. But when I do go in, the first thing you want to do is you do a breakdown, and you need to break down every element, and then doing that breakdown, every single prop, every single location, every single character. Even though I'm not the producer and I'm not going to be using that breakdown, what it does is it's helped me as a director pick out any big holes that are in that script. And you usually will find them. And it doesn't mean you have to stop and go back to square one. But identifying those, you'll fix those big gaps or those issues or those continuity issues. And you'll also find ways to, because people are going to start coming at you with, oh, we need to cut this scene, we need to cut that scene because we don't have the money. So by knowing your story and your breakdown so intimately, you'll be able to come up with very good solutions that mean something to you instead of making a compromise that you might not like down the road. So it's really important to have your own directing breakdown, just for you. You don't need to show it to anyone, but you need to have it for yourself so that you're ready to answer, because you're going to have everybody coming to you for every single answer to every single thing. I know Sodi is there nodding his head.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah,
Yes, he
yeah,
knows
yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah.
mean.
You're making sense.
Yeah, yeah. So no, have all your materials. Another thing I would say is that by preparing your director's vision document, shows your team that you've assembled to go into production with. It shows them that you have a strong vision right from the very get-go. If you go in and you're not sharing this with them, you'll get some people, especially directors of photography, no offense, but they will have their own vision too. And you need to make it very clear that this is my vision. These are the looks. This is the sort of framing I want. This is the lighting that I'm looking for. This is the mood of my film. This is the world of my film. And you build your world into that director's vision. It doesn't have to be 20 pages. It can be 5 pages, as long as there's a strong sense of how you want to visually tell this story, because you're going from the page to the screen. And sharing this document will enable your costume people, your makeup artist, your DP, your ADs. They'll all sort of be in this with you together as a team. And one thing that I've witnessed is a lot of directors, they like to keep everything, especially if they've written the story, they like to keep it all themselves. I don't work that way. I like to when I've created my shot lists, I send it out. I send my director's vision out. I send it all out to my family. They're going to be my family.
Right.
They're going to be my filmmaking family. So, I have to share that. Otherwise, if I keep it all to me, then if I'm the only one that knows what I want, how are they going to help me get what I want? So I'm very much a collaborator, and if I come to a problem, to answer your question in a very long-winded way, get to a big problem on set, we're filming, we get to this issue with dialogue, or it could be the scene isn't working, I just stop, and I was like, oh, who wrote that garbage? It's me that wrote it. And we fix it together, especially if I'm working with actors and the dialogue isn't rolling off well. I'm not going to, if we've tried it a few times already and I've given some notes, or we've tried to work on it, it's still not working, I'm like, how would you say it? Or how can we even scrap the dialogue altogether and just show it? What would you like to do in terms of your blocking to just show this instead of speaking about it? So it's okay to stop everyone, and your PA might come up with a solution.
As long as
So
you're
by
open.
including everyone, you're more likely to solve the problem, I think.
Yeah, as long as we're open to including everybody in the thought process.
Yeah, and that's just how I work. I mean, I just came off a show where, it's very union, very strict. You didn't cross over into anyone's job role, right? That's studio work, but in indie film, that's one of the reasons I love the independent arena, is because everyone can contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Khalid, did you have a situation ever that you went till quite a bit of a process and then you wanted to entirely drop that film?
Wow, that's a great question. Yes, I just went through that recently.
So why did that happen?
Um, I, how can I say this without revealing too much? Um, I realized that I had the wrong people with me. Yeah.
So, so,
Um,
so a quick fix could have been to find the right people. Did you not?
yeah.
Did you choose that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes you really, especially with independent work, where there's very little money, there's very little time. Choosing the right people to work with is critical, because if you choose the wrong people, especially talent, and your higher up creatives, DPs, stuff like that, if you choose badly, you can get in a whole lot of trouble. Yeah, yeah. And luckily, this was sort of more in the development phase of the project. But yeah, it made me, I had to stop and I thought to myself, I don't want to make this. I feel like the project's been made toxic and I can't make art that way when I'm having these feelings. I just can't be a storyteller properly, and do the story justice when I'm so aggravated and so upset. And so I just sort of shelved that project. Yeah, sad, but it does happen.
Yeah, the reason I ask this is because a lot of us get stuck at exactly that point. You know that
Yeah,
it's not working, but you don't even want to accept that it's not working, you
yeah,
know? And then there's another layer of confusion where we feel that it is working, I just need to find a way out, right? And in that
yeah.
process, a lot of times the idea itself gets diluted, gets like you're done.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've seen that a lot, actually. I've seen writer directors get completely steamrolled on set during production, and the impact of certain scenes is lessened and diluted. The story's diluted, and all of a sudden, what you thought you were going to be watching at the end of it isn't anywhere near close to what you thought you were going to get. It's sad, but it happens a lot. It happens a lot in our industry, and sorry to say, it actually happens a lot with women directors. So you'll get into a situation where you're on set, uh, and people unfortunately just assume that you don't know what you're doing, even though you do. And people, and this is not always intentional. So I'm not sort of trying to be toxic about male females in the workplace or anything like that, but it could be female female
Right.
or male male or whatever. But you might get into a situation where you're on set and someone just is steamrolling you and they don't even realize they're doing it,
Mm.
and you have to sort of pull them aside and have a conversation, like as early as and as quickly as possible, and say, if we could just tone this down. I said, I have a strong vision for this. I'd love for you to be on my team. I want you to be able to help me create this vision. I'd love collaborating, but I can't do it like this. We need to listen to each other. Currently, you're not listening to me. Let's change that. you know?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have to hear the bells more clearly and
Yeah.
react well in time. So one question, Kylie, going back to where it started, from where is the genesis of an idea for you? And we talked about that it's usually always personal and it's
Mhm.
personal from an experience. How about a situation where somebody else walks up to you bringing a subject? So it did not generate in your own heart or mind in the first place, but
Mhm.
it's adopted in a way, right? Somebody
Yep.
comes with an idea and says, how about this as an idea? And should we make a film? Now, till up until this time, you were not thinking in that direction. You had no idea about this particular situation. And now you are breathing it in and going
Yeah.
with it, right?
Yeah.
Have you been in a situation like that? And if yes, then how did you merge your preferences, your process with the other person's expectations?
That's a great question, and I have a great and recent example of that. So I've never done reality television before. I'd never been in the reality space before. I'm not a watcher of paranormal ghost series or anything like that. But I was hired to do a casting for a paranormal series, TV series, last winter. And during the winter here, there's not a lot of other stuff going on. And I was like, great, fabulous. I'd love to help you. And I was tasked with helping the showrunner cast this paranormal show. And during the course of the casting, they were interviewing directors for the series, and I guess they realized that they wanted to offer me the directing role. And I was a bit shocked because I'm not from that world. I mean, if you look at my IMDb page, I have no reality in there at all. And I went away and I thought about it, because they seemed very keen to have me sign on. And I thought, I'm going to go back. I thought about how I would, if I was going to do a reality paranormal TV show, how would I do it? What would be my authentic voice within that show? And then the next meeting, I pitched them. I said, look, I may not be the right person for you, but here's how I would like to do it if you still want to hire me. And I said, I'd want a sort of a longer format, slightly elevated, cinematic, Stanley Kubrick, let's get some props, let's get some background, and sort of make this a semi-scripted as opposed to an unscripted. And also I would want the three main cast, we've got a psychic, we've got a ghost hunter, and we've got a host. I said I would want them to have some kind of character arcs over the series. And they totally went for it and hired me anyway. So there you go. But it took me, I had to go away and think about, does this really fit who I am? And we don't always have the luxury of making those choices. Sometimes you need to take the job because you need the money. So you just need to find out, look within and go, okay, well, this is something that surprised me. It's not a subject that I've thought of before, but take your time and really read the script, have meetings with the writer, really try to understand the vision. That's why, and then come up with your sort of mood board and your director's vision and share that with the producers and the writer and go, am I on the right page? All about sharing those concepts so that you can deliver them what they're looking for. And in TV directing, we're directors for hire. We're not auteurs, where we have to go in and we have to execute someone else's vision. But there are lots of ways and means to do that. And I take an acting approach. So in the acting world, we have our as ifs, and we have our, we have our sort of like, our deeper meanings of like, what personal experience can I bring to my performance? What's the emotion? Is it anger? Is it love? Is it hurt, sorrow, all of those things? And we go back and we think about triggers for our own inner sense. I do the same thing when I'm directing other people's material. Yeah.
That's a great insight. That's a great
Yeah,
insight.
I feel like it works for actors, and I think it can work for when you're trying to get the emotional beats and get really dig into someone else's script, because you're going to create the visual part of that story. Connecting with it emotionally on a level, it just works for me. But yeah.
Beautiful. Amazingly put. That's a very, very unique approach. At least I hadn't thought of it from that point of view. Brilliant. So there's a question waiting for you from Wimla. She's asking, any websites you recommend to a fresh screenwriter for help besides the books that you mentioned?
Yes, there's so many. Wow. So off the top of my head, Screenwriting U. There is Final Draft, the Final Draft website, which they sell software, but they also have a whole catalog of material that you can read. There is also Studio Binder. There's a fantastic website that I've been subscribing to for nearly 10 years now called No Film School. And you can subscribe to their newsletter, and they also have a free screenwriting book that you can download. Where else have I gone? Oh, there's so many. Yeah, over the last 5 months, I've been sort of doing 14, 15 hour days on production. So I'm a bit, but yeah, but Studio Binder is really good. And definitely No Film School. I mean, if you have not heard of No Film School, then you should definitely look it up. It's fantastic. There's all kinds of there's so much screenwriting. There's technical directing, industry insights, new things, new ways of doing. They do lots of video blogs. They share lots of video blogs. It's called No Film School because it's for anyone who never went to film school,
Right.
basically. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it, and I mean, I still read all their articles, and I still go back, and I subscribe to their weekly newsletter, and I don't delete them. I actually keep
Keep.
most of them to go to refer back to. So I have a whole folder in my Google account just dedicated to that newsletter. Yeah.
I relate to them because if you've noticed, we've called this whole conversation series on Malhar as what they don't teach you at the film school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some of us went to a film school and some of us didn't. The ones who went to film school said they did not learn anything there. The ones who did not go to the film school wish that they had ever gone to a film school.
Yeah.
So, these conversations in Malhar is a take on what did you not pick up at the film school, and I guess all of this that you're sharing, Kylie, so preciously compacted into a few minutes of a discussion could not have been covered in a school material ever. Okay, great. So I have two last questions, and I'm going to wrap it up real quick and real fun. One, if anybody has any key questions, like really really key, something that stuck up your throat, send it in. But otherwise, we're wrapping up. So Kylie, you come across as a very strong and a clear person. You know what you're doing. You know where in life you are. You know where you're headed. You have a fair sense of what kind of work you want to do and not do.
Yes.
What are your challenges?
Oh, the challenges are going to constantly be getting the right connections to show your work to. I'm sure we've all watched some shows on Netflix and gone, well, how did this get on TV? And here's my script sitting right here, and it's great. And this is now I'm watching this thing, or I think part of the hard thing of this industry is getting your work in front of the right people, breaking through those doors. That's super super hard to do, and it takes tenacity. You're going to get lots of rejection, and overcoming that rejection is not easy either. But it's a part of what you have to be able to accept. So that always and always will, even though even now I have an agent and I'm moving forward, I'm still getting rejection letters every day. It doesn't, yeah, it's
Doesn't.
just part of that. So that will always be a challenge. And I think, there'll always be the challenge of funding as well. It's two big things: is getting the right doors to open for you, and funding. And I think they're a universal thing that we all, that's why it's so great to be with all of you, because I'm sure we can all relate to all of that,
Yeah.
is getting money to create our art and getting people to read our art in the first place.
No matter who you are and where you are.
No matter who you are. And even well-known people, people that I've met in person, they're still they're still struggling too. Maybe not nowhere near on the same level as we are, but they've got stories they want to tell and still get rejection sometimes too. So it's not just us.
It is a very subjective space that we're sitting in,
Mhm.
and it's the art, when art meets business, it's
Yeah.
talking to two ends of the earth, trying to
Yes.
find an equator, which is damn difficult. Even if
Yep.
you reach that equator, it's going to be so hot that you can only sustain there for a bit. You get
Yeah.
your work done and you exit.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have one more rapid fire for you, Kylie, before we say bye.
Okay.
Award or money?
A what?
Award or money? Awards.
Money, because then I would put it towards my next project.
Casting or production?
Production.
Mute or musical?
Mute.
Now or tomorrow?
Now.
Suspense or reality?
Suspense.
Documentary or docudrama?
Docudrama.
And you won the next big hamper, Kylie. It's there.
I can feel it. I can feel
Yeah,
it.
this is the tragedy of a virtual world that we're there, but we're not there. I so wish I could like actually give you this hamper, but one day I will.
Oh, no problem at all. It was sorry, that was my dog. It was really great to meet you, and thank you, Soti, for including me. I really am so grateful. And yeah, anytime. Have a great rest of the festival, folks.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Zori. Good that you
Thank you so much, Kylie. Nice to see you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Bye.
Bye bye.
Awesome. So thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Hope the session was
Thank you so
great.
much.
Okay, great. Everybody's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, oh Mita. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sonia. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Sori. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Take care, everybody. Good night. Good night, Chai.
Good night. Good night. Ciao, ciao.